All right. Good morning, November 23rd, Tuesday. So today, pretty short day. We're gonna get connected with MySQL Workbench. By chance, have all three of you already gotten your connection to work in MySQL Workbench?
I have not had a chance to do that yet. I can
Cool.
do that on a break if you'd like, or we can do it, or I can do it now.
Yeah, we're gonna go over that in real time. So, um, first thing is to share my screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, so MySQL Workbench is an application. If you've got it installed, it's on your start menu. I believe down here in the M, it might be under the MySQL Workbench. Yes. And I drug it over. I used it enough one time that I drug a shortcut over to the taskbar. But okay, so MySQL Workbench, just click on it like normal. Now, since I've already gone into it and connected to a database, it's probably going to look a little different for me than you guys, but we'll walk through it. It's pretty simple to get a connection started. What we're actually connecting to, this application is, installed on your desktop, but um, what we're connecting to is actually a MariaDB, which is a flavor of MySQL, um, hosted on Amazon Web Services by a good friend of mine. Okay, so when it comes up for me, like I said, I've already got connections. Um, but what you want to do is, okay, get to this front title screen. Um, so is anybody following along with me? And
Yes, I am.
and Dave, so what what did you see when it first came up? Have you gotten to something that looks close to what I got here?
I have that screen right there with the exception of under MySQL connections. It doesn't have the two windows that you have. It looks like I need to hit that drop down
Yeah, if
and
you
put in a connection.
yeah, hit the plus. That's to open a new connection, and
Right.
a connection is just the username and password to get you into a database server.
Yep.
Click plus there.
Yeah, and it opens up in a new window that says set up new connection.
Yeah. So you pick the name. I chose Walker. You could if you have a bunch of different connections or several different connections to different databases, it can help to name them meaningfully for what they are. Like you're connecting to production versus test or whatever. So you pick a connection name, leave connection method where it's at. Um, I send out the username and password and IP address.
Yep.
100.26.226.59. Is that right? Should be.
Oh, the IP address. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, not what I've got. It this defaults to some nonsense when you first pull it up for a new one. Port 3306 stays the same. Um, and then username is whatever I sent you. And I mean, these are fairly harmless accounts, so I go ahead and store in Vault. And like I said, um, they're read only, so you can't really do any real damage to anybody. So I'm not all that worried about security with it. So yeah, get your username and password clicked in there, and then when you have everything, there's only a few fields: username, password, IP address. Click on test connection. I'm gonna cancel out of here and bring up my. Oh, it goes ahead and connects when you click on it. So, Dave, were you able to click on test connection?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm just not quite as fast as you. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll slow down just a little bit.
I got an error whenever I tested connection.
What's the error?
SSL is required, but the server does not support it. And I checked, there's no way to turn off the requirement for SSL.
Well, that's why we're checking this. Let me figure out how to get back where I was. Yeah, I know you get a warning here. What warning not supported version or something? But I've never seen a SSL error. Well, I'm trying to get back out there without exiting all the way out. Okay. So I'll do a new connection here and see what's going on.
Yeah, I got an error message too when I hit test connection.
And in this SSL, if available, by chance, can you edit your connection?
Let me look.
And just make sure everything looks like mine. I don't know, it could be a permissions thing on the server. The next time any of you get that error, would you take a screen snippet and email it to me just in case we can't get it figured out? I'll need to send it to my admin guy, my buddy Justin, and get him to troubleshoot it. I've never seen that error before, and
Yeah, it does not give me the options for no and if available. I only get those bottom three.
ah, hmm. I'm not sure what to say. I've never, like I said, never as undiscovered country for me. Let's Google it. Mm-hmm. 4 years ago, good grief. SSL is required, but the server doesn't support it. Everybody seeing what I got on my screen here? Click on the little wrench icon This may be something that I had to troubleshoot 2 years ago and have just completely forgotten about. Uh, Colton, are you seeing what's on my screen?
Yeah, but I sent you a screenshot of it. That option is not available.
The wrench isn't available on your.
No. Where it says use SSL if available,
Mhm.
only options that show up when I click that same tab are require and verify CA, and require and verify identity.
Hmm. Oh, I got you. Yeah, this is manage connections. Gotcha. Yeah, it brings up the same. Yeah, okay. The same window as if you edit it. Hmm. Um. Well, maybe it got to what to do. Ah, if you can find an good grief. Probably you might set the. And you're saying you don't have no, and if available.
No, let me check my version. That's
Yeah.
probably what it is.
Yeah, but we got to fix it, or I'll just have to do something else. I've used W3 schools a lot uh, for SQL, but it's not an IDE, so it's not as user friendly.
Yeah, I'm on 8.0.27.
Okay.
That's
In
what it is.
Workbench 827, if under the SSL tab you don't see the option no, go to. Oh, good grief.
Man, where is home MySQL? Oh, that's the file. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to close that. What have I got? 8.21. Yeah, that's how old my version is. Um, hmm. Well, okay. Well, that's why I wanted to test it. So I'll have to get this. I'll have to get this troubleshot by next Tuesday when I wanted to start SQL. And if I have to, I'll use just a web-based um, a web-based classroom that lets you but it's not my database that I'm familiar with and that I have all my materials written for and homework and all that.
Can you go back to the Stack Exchange post real quick?
Oh,
I found
sure.
that they're talking about, I think.
Is MySQL running on that IP address?
MySQL is running on that the IP address I showed you and the one I had.
And it's reachable on that port?
Yeah, my connection works great.
No.
But like I said, I'm on a 2-year-old version of Workbench. But it may be easier to just get Justin to enable SSL on the server. So I'll work that from both angles, and we'll figure it out come Tuesday. All I Googled was, well, you saw what I typed in, right? Cool.
Yes, I did.
Are you going to try what it says?
I just
that
did.
work.
Let me see if it.
Yeah.
It did not like that. I'll work on it in the background.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's why I wanted to test it, because there's always a surprise. Though it worked just over the summer, but I guess went from 2.6 to 2.7. Goofed it up. Okay. All right. So for today, what have we got? 8:49. I uploaded a new notebook for Python to go through what are called arrays in most older programming languages. Different languages call these things different things. Python calls the main one we use is a list, but this is a data type that lets you store multiple elements in a list and then refer to them, by their number within the list. So we'll go through this, and then I wanted to take a little time and solve maybe number 4 or number 5 of that Python problems too, because I've only seen a couple of folks turn that in, so I figure maybe there's a struggle here or there. Okay, so in generic computer science terms, these are sequence data structures, sequence data types, because it's a sequence of values, a sequence of things. So it holds multiple items, and the primary one we'll use is list, but there's one that acts just like it called a tuple. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's a tuple is a little faster, and you can't change the things in a tuple like you can a list. You can reach into a list and change item 3 from Don to Bill, but you can't with a tuple. And that's what it goes to there. It's mutable versus immutable, is the term I did not hear really before I started learning Python. So a list, yeah, is just like it sounds. An array can sound a little confusing, but a list is just what it sounds like. So here we've got our first code cell. We are creating 3 different list variables that will be of the data type list. So we'll run that and nothing happens. If I hit Control Enter and run this first cell, it loads up the list, but because we're not printing anything or doing anything, we don't get any output, of course. But what you can notice is student numbers are pretty obviously numeric literals. Those are the values in there, and they look all to be the same. The list called movies is loaded up with 4 string literals. So their data type is very likely to be string. The employee list is a good example that you can mix types within a list. They don't have to be the same throughout the list, which a lot of other languages would get confused if you tried to do that. A list has to either be one data type or the other, but Python lets you mix and match, and it does like it does with everything else. It just guesses, assigns it based on the standard. So if I hit Control and Enter, you'll see that it prints all of the elements in that list when you print the list. Okay. One thing that we covered was the range function. Remember in the for loop, when we were talking about looping, which was last time, I believe, notebook 4. The range function returns a list basically of numbers based on what the parameters that you send it. So this working from the inside out. That's the best way to read these things. You have a range function that's going to return starting at 5, ending at, but not including, remember it's exclusive, ending at, but not including 100, and it's going to increment by 5s. That's what those 3 parameters for the range function do. And the list function converts that range iterable into the data type list and assigns all that to 5s. And then when we print 5s, you'll see it is a list going from 5 to 95 by 5s. Just like that. So that's a way to spin up a list of if the problem calls for it. If you know you need a list that looks like that, you don't have to type the assignment statement with all of the equals and then 5, 10, 15, 20. You can use the range function to pull that in. And then if you multiply a list, it concatenates the entire list. It doesn't multiply the values inside the list together or something like that. It just replicates it. So more 5s equals that first list we just created 3 times. So now we'll have a list of 3 times from 5 to 95. We'll see how that looks. Beg your pardon, one of the homework problems would have been easier. I'll know it when I see it. Would have been easier with a list type to iterate through. I'm curious if we'll see that when I bring them up here in a little bit. Okay, so that's the entire list. You just refer to it as its variable name. But very often you want to access an individual element within the loop. And if you want to go through all the elements, which is classically what a for loop is for, is to do something a predetermined number of times, and the number of elements in the list predetermines how many times you go through the for loop. You use a structure like this for num in student numbers, and remember student numbers was up here 1 2 3 4 5 2 3 4 5 6, that one. So you got 6 student numbers. So when you use the for loop, it will go through student numbers, and num will become the student number itself. For info in employee print info. So see, it doesn't, the for loop operator there, the num will assume the first value, and then the next time through it'll assume the second value in the list, not the position of the item, the actual item's value. So that's moving through a list with a for loop. But more often than just going through the whole list, you'll be accessing certain elements within the list. And remember, it's just like we've talked with other functions. The first element of the list is element 0, so it's 0 based. Comes up all the time. So here we're going to print movies sub 2. Remember, is actually the third movie name, which was Star Wars. So when we execute that cell, we'll get Star Wars, and we'll get the first employee in the or the first element in the employee, which was 693. Remember, we had 693 John Cleese, and then 89 500. Okay. And then negative, yeah, negative goes to the end and then counts counts backwards. So movies -2. Star Wars goes to the end of the list. And comes back to the second to the last one, which can be handy, but not something I remember using a whole lot. But anyway, negative numbers do work. It just goes to the end and works its way backwards. Let's see. Since lists are mutable, we can use an index number and then assign a value to that element inside the list. Like element 0, instead of 693, we would assign 999 to the very first thing in the list. Try this code. Oh yeah, and I added a bunch of stuff here at the end so that you can see. The first time we print it is the old value, 693. And then here we are assigning 999 to the 0th or first cell. Did I turn recording back on? Yes, I am recording. Good. So yeah, that's how you assign a value to an individual element within the list. The first time it's 693. The second time it's 999. But I wanted to show you the actual data type within the list will change based on whether it's picking up that you assigned it a float, integer, or string value. But then the actual type of employee itself is a list, class list. And we'll talk a little bit more about classes and object oriented again this lesson because it keeps coming up. Okay, so we can create a blank list by just multiplying a space or some other filler character with by 5 or 10 or 100 or whatever what case may be, and that just creates a list of placeholders, and then you can assign a value inside of those elements using indexing. So at first we just have blank, comma, blank, comma, blank, comma, blank times 5. And then we changed the third element to Jimmy and the first element to Sue, because remember it's 0 based. And there it shows the results of that. And you can create a new list by concatenating, just like we concatenate strings in a print statement. You can concatenate lists just using the plus sign. So we got student numbers up here. That was the 5 or 6 student numbers. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 4. So that's student numbers right there. 6 different numbers. So we will create a similar list, faculty numbers, and then we'll concatenate them and print out all numbers. And now you've got everything within there. So sometimes splicing together lists like that works. And you notice it does append them to the end. We'll talk about sorting the list here in just a minute. Okay, how we doing? All right. Yeah, and this is the abbreviated assignment operator plus equals is the same as saying faculty members equals or faculty numbers equals faculty numbers plus movies. I don't ever use that. I guess I think C programmers maybe love that, but I've always taken the longer route. It seems more readable to me. And then print faculty numbers should now be these three that we assigned up here plus the movie names. Yep. Just to show you. So there we go. You can go through a list with a while loop if the problem calls for it. I don't know that I necessarily remembered using a while loop. Seems like pretty much when you're going through a list, it's a predetermined number of things. You may not want to do the same thing on every member in the list, so there will be some logic to program, but a while loop to go through a list. Anyway, it can be done. You've got to set your index outside the loop, and then this will operate until the value of index is greater than 6, greater than or equal to 6, and then it will pop out. So this is going to print student numbers sub index, but then remember, whenever you're working with a while loop, you've always got to be, you're the one responsible for changing the loop testing variable to make sure that it will at some point terminate the loop. So that's where you've got index equals index plus 1. So you increment index and go through, and as soon as it hits, you really only care about 0 through 5, right? So that will terminate then. So that's a way to go through the entire list using a while loop. And a lot of times you're dealing with a list that will be dynamic. The user will be entering things, or you'll open up a file or a CSV or whatever. And if you're working with a list in your program, you don't necessarily know how long the list will be. So luckily there's a handy dandy function that returns the length of student numbers. This returns the number of elements in the list, so that you're in your programming, you don't have to know how long the list is. So we use another same exact construct as before, only we're using the length of student numbers, the length function to check, instead of using hard coding 6 like we did 6 up here. So very minor change. And then this next section can be a little bit of a mind bender. You can slice a list or pull a segment of a list out, and you can do the same thing with string variables. You can pull out 2 or 3, 4, 5, whatever characters out of the middle of a string using the same nomenclature here. We didn't get that far with string data types. So list slicing pulls out a slice of the list, or a subset of the list. Okay, and that requires, instead of just one number here, like down in this next code cell, instead of just one number, there are as many as 3 parameters that tell you which members of the list I want to return. So I'll uncomment all of these. So the first number is to start, and remember it's 0 based. I want to do these one at a time. Okay, so from element 2 to element 4. And remember, it's 0 based indexing. So 2 is actually the third thing. I'm going to test my theory here. Star Wars, and up to but not including the fourth thing was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to but not including Heidi. So I'm expecting this to return Star Wars and Heidi. Let's run it. Star Wars and Heidi. There you go. So that's using the first two characters of the slicing operator. If you omit the first one, I believe it starts at the beginning and returns 3 characters. So I'm expecting that to do Scarface the Blob and Star Wars. I'm sorry. I think it's going to be Scarface and the Blob, up to but not including. Hang on now. With no start value, it's going to start at Scarface, and it's going to end before it gets to 0, 1, 2, 3 Heidi. So this is going to be Scarface, the Blob, and Star Wars. That's my bet. Scarface, the Blob, and Star Wars. There you go. So no digit in the first position starts at the beginning. No digit in the second position goes to the end of the list. So this will be starting with the Blob. This third print statement. We'll start with the Blob and go to the end of the list. The Blob, Star Wars, and Heidi. Now, oh, I never ran this cell. Duh. Which adds some movies there. Let me run this again. So that's a great example of running these cells. It doesn't matter where they are on the page. It matters what order you ran them. Do you run them in? Let's do that again, and bam, yeah, there's more movie numbers. Okay. Nobody shouted out at me, hey, you missed a cell. Everybody doing all right? Clear as mud?
Yep.
This is a pretty routine Pythonista stuff. Okay. And -4 seems like it goes to the end of the list and works its way backwards. We'll check that one out. So we go to the N, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes back to Star Wars. Let's see here. Oh, it's the last 4. Yeah, there you go. The last 4 of the list. Okay. And then if we slice with no parameters, it's the entire list, which we're doing twice here. There we go. And then finally, that last slice of the list 1, which would be the blob, up to but not including 4, which is Heidi, up to but not including Heidi. And then you're going by 2s. Increment by 2s. There you go. So we skipped Star Wars because this third parameter is a 2. Okay. So that is assigning and traversing and running through a list. There's a couple other things you can do with them that we will cover after the break. Any questions so far? I can't believe it's just the 3 of us guys. Okay, no questions? All right. Let's come back at 9:30. Okay, second hour. We are working on Python Notebook 5, lists and tuples. I got to Google that. How do you pronounce? Do you pronounce? You guys say tuple or tuple? You, Colton, you're a experienced Python guy, right?
Pretty sure it's double.
Tuple, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to click on the tuple. That's what she said. All right. I thought so, but I don't hear that word thrown around in conversation all that regularly. So I never know. Okay, back to that notebook. And we are recording. Okay, so you can also search in a list to see if an object is one of the elements, and it's got to be exact. Let's see what we got here on this next code cell. If I run that and I type in the blob lowercase, not found. Run it again and type it in exactly, case sensitive, and as you would think, found it. Found the blob. Found it. So that's the in operator. Looks to see if a value is in a list or a tuple. If search in movies. Okay. And then here we go. And like I said, I apologize talking about object-oriented programming. It's something you kind of have to know a little bit about for this stuff to make sense, but to go full on object-oriented programming is a whole nother course. So I'll try and avoid confusing you. So there's, as we're seeing, there's ways to get things done, right? There's functions that you pass it a value or a variable or whatever, and it does some calculating and returns a value to you. And this is a concept across all software tools. Excel's got functions that do that exact same thing, that take inputs and return a value. But there's another way to get to kind of what acts like a function, but it's not really a function, really. But it's important to know the difference, because when you're trying to figure out how to do something, whether it is a built-in function or it is a method of the class of variable, will greatly determine how it operates. So, like, for example, the print is actually, a function. You send the parameter movies, and print returns to standard output. It returns the contents of movies, movies could be just a number, or it could be a list, it could be anything. That's how the print function works. Okay, so that's a function. But then you'll see, increasingly, you'll see a variable name dot and then what looks like a function name. And that is actually called a method, which is a small bit of functionality that only works within that type of variable. So you will have, like, movies is a list. You will have list methods where you might be tempted to say, like, movies equals append this stuff. But that's not how it works. It's not a function. Append isn't a function that you pass stuff to like that. It's a method within the class of variables or the class of objects called movies. I hope that's not too terribly confusing. You will have methods like append, you would think would, add something to the end of a list. There won't necessarily be an append method for other data types. So that's where methods are written specific to that class of objects. Like there are string methods, there are list methods, dictionary methods. You'll see a lot of methods with a pandas data frame, the the spreadsheet looking thing that we've talked about. So depending on what you're doing, you'll either use a function or a method, and it just takes practice and experience and a Google search to figure all that stuff out. So that's as far as I'm able to get really with object-oriented technology. There's a class is a template for a type of thing. And in Python, there are classes of data, the data types that are themselves classes. So you have a string class, and when you want one of them, you just assign a value to a variable, and if it's in quotes, it'll bam, you've got a string, or you can convert it using the str function. But that's why when we use that type command, like we're doing down here in another code cell, if you use that type function, it will tell you class string, because that's what it is. It's an object of that class. Hopefully that becomes a little clearer. If you've never had coding, it can be kind of tough to understand. So anyway, if you want to append something to the list called movies, you use the append method. And I will try and use the appropriate name for all of this stuff when I talk about it. So we're appending the string Spartacus to the list called movies. So first we'll print it out before the append, and then we'll print it out after, and you'll see it got stuck at the end using the append method. Then there's another method that operates on lists called count that will return the number of elements within that list. Okay, since we only passed it one, there you go. But let me or how many times it's in the list, I'm sorry, yeah, how many times it occurs in the list. But I wanted to read my comment here because, oh yeah, movies dot, there we go. Because Jupyter Notebook kind of auto completes and guesses. I've used this tab before where you type in something, and it if you hit tab, it will auto complete the variable name. And in this case, if I hit tab, it gives me a list of all it gives me a list of the list methods. So these are all of the legal methods that are associated with lists. You can append something to the end. You can clear the entire list. You can make an identical copy of the list. You can count the number of times something is in the list, and so on and so forth. You can sort it. Is that down there? Where did that go? Ah, yeah, there's a sort method. And you can sort it, and you can reverse it. Movies dot reverse. Well, I didn't mean to do that, but there you go. So that's a kind of a cool autocomplete thing.
Dr. Walker,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
But did you say that you just pressed tab to get that autocomplete drop down list?
Yeah, on a blank list, if I type in movies dot and then hit tab, it takes 2 seconds to come up. So hit tab and then that should come up.
Okay. Yeah, I may need to just refresh it and see if it'll pop up for me. But thanks.
Sure. So those are the list methods. Now I'm trying to think here. Like there's other. I'm going off script here because I want to be clear. So I'll declare a variable called my string in a new code cell. So my string equals woohoo. Okay, so let's run that. All right, who cares? Now, if I say my underscore string dot and I hit tab, now I get all of the string methods that I can use on the string woohoo. So this is going off a little bit from lists, but I wanted to really make sure that that everybody understands that there's these methods that you get to by saying the variable name dot method, and then the method takes 0 to a number of parameters in order to operate. So for a string, which is just like a word, let's try capitalize. String dot capitalize. And I think you always have to have a open and close paren. My string dot capitalize. Let's see if I print that. I am. See what we get here. Oop. They capitalize the first letter. There we go. So I wonder if there's like an all caps. My string dot tab. And you can, yeah, there's a format method. You can change formatting of stuff. Is alphanumeric is alpha. That returns a true or false. It tests a string to see if it is if it's a number, if it's characters or whatever. That's how you can do some error checking. There's all of these methods that work on a string. So I think we'll do a little bit more about those in the future. And if I upper it, I think that might be the one that upcases the entire thing. Yeah. So that method upcases it. But I'm wondering now if I just use that method and I don't print it, but and then one more time, then I print my string. What I'm wondering is if it changes it forever or if it just does it for one time. You know what I mean? If it's actually changing the value. It does not. Yeah, it returns the value, but it doesn't actually change it unless you do an assignment statement. So there we go. More about methods than perhaps you wanted to know. So I'll cut that out because that's not in your notebook. I won't want it there next time. Okay, and index is a method that returns the number of element where it finds the first occurrence. And remember, it's 0 based, so the blob should be a 1. And it is, yeah, it's an integer. The index data type is integer. Okay. And then to to insert a new element, of course, there's an insert method. So we can insert in cell 3, um, which will stick it in there and then shove everything else to the right. If you use a number that is outside the current number of elements, like we only have what, 6 or 7 movies, 97 will put it at the end. Negative goes to the end and counts backward. Invalid negative will put it at the beginning of the list. So that this will put get out at the beginning of the list. And I'm not sure what -0 does. Let's run this cell and see. So when we first started, movies was all the way up to Spartacus. And then we stuck Ben in at position 3, which is actually the 4th element because it's 0 based. So there we go. And then we added Jaws to the end because 97 is off scale high. And then we stuck it starting at the end, the 5th back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then get out was invalid negative. So it went to the beginning. And same with -0. I might have added that just to experiment. Because there is no real -0. Anyway, so it puts that at the beginning. Superman and Get Out were both appended to the beginning. So that's how you insert stuff in a list. And then to sort a list, you use a method again. Sort it in ascending order, reverse sorts it backwards, or you can just use the sort method and then throw it a parameter that is reverse equals true. We'll do the exact same thing as the reverse method. So let's run all 3 of those. Okay, so yep, first one sorted it ascending order. The second one did the same thing and then the same thing. And that actually changes the list. It's not just it doesn't just return it so you can print it one time. It actually changes the order of the elements in the list. Okay, and then to delete an element, you use the remove method, and we'll run it here. It doesn't just put a null value in place. It actually deletes it and shrinks the list by that one element. So they were all methods of the list class or a list object. The difference between an object and a class is an object is something tangible, like our movies list. That's an object, the movies object. It's an object of the class list, just like you can have a blueprint for a house, but if you an actual instantiation of that house blueprint is 123 Apple Grove Court. So that's kind of, a class in object-oriented programming. And when you see the type class string or class list, that's sort of a blueprint for a type of thing. But then when you want one of them, you need to have it's a named variable, which is called an object. So there we go. All right. So to delete I'm sorry, yeah, we removed Star Wars out of there in that last one. And then the delete function delete something from the index number if you have the index number, like if you're for looping through it or whatever like that. standalone function. And then min, max, and sum are functions that you pass a list to, and it returns the minimum, which will work on multiple data types. If it's numeric, it's the lowest number. If it's alphanumeric, it's the lowest in the alphabet. Let's print min of movies to prove that. Yeah, then and up are the extreme ends of the list. Even regardless of what order it's sorted in, it will find the highest or lowest value. So that's what I'm saying. If you, when you're working with this stuff, it can be hard to remember why is it a built-in function min? Why isn't it student numbers dot min, a method? And you just have to practice with it and figure out the way the language authors decided to solve the problem. So copying lists can be a little weird. Python has a tendency that if you say, new list equals old list or new thing equals old thing, sometimes it doesn't actually create a whole new thing. It just creates a duplicate name for the stuff that was being stored at old name. It's called passing by reference instead of passing by value. So it's just another Pythonism that, as you get going a little bit more, it can be confusing. So when you want to copy a list, you have to copy the elements of the list. Yeah. Or I believe there's a method for it. So movies with no, with the slicing parameter with no numbers is the entire list. That's the entire movies list. But and there'll be an example of it down here in a little bit. If you just said cinema equals movies, cinema would point to the movies in the list called movies. It wouldn't actually be a brand new, fresh copy. And that's the way Python operates by default with lists. By default, it passes by reference. So here we've made a duplicate copy of movies and put it in a list called cinema. And we have that there. Okay. Or so you can use the list slicing methodology to get all of them in there, or you can loop through a list and append each item in turn to make another copy, to make a true separate distinct copy of the list. And that does the same thing as before. So both of those do the same things. So here in this next code cell, you'll see what I'm talking about. Films equals movies with no slicing operator will just make films point at the same list in memory that movies points to. So if you modify movies, you'll also be modifying the elements in films. And we'll run this code cell and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So we created a list object called films that's really just pointing at movies. So if I print films, yeah, it looks just like movies, right? So if I append get out to movies, like I am on this line, and then I print films, it's there as well. So that's because films is not its own list. It's just a pointer to movies, or to the same memory location that movies points to. Pass by reference. Again, there you go. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. If you're an experienced coder, this is all pretty familiar territory. Beg your pardon. So yeah, just something to remember, and it will come up again in different data types. I don't believe the basic data types operate this way: int, float, and string. It seems like they pass by value. So when you no kidding, you get a separate copy. But these larger, more complex data structures can eat up a lot of memory if you accidentally or habitually make separate copies of them. So it defaults to passing by reference. Okay. And here we have two ways to do something. The hard way and the easy way. So we've got our student numbers list that we'll reinitialize with these 6 values. We've got a total variable here, which is going to be your accumulator, I believe. And then you have the counter variable that is your counter. Tells you the number of times through the loop. So that's all this for loop does, is it's going to stick each student number from the student numbers list into value, and then it's going to do these 2 lines of code, and then it's going to come back and do it again and again and again until it runs to the end of the list. So for value in student numbers, we're going to add. We start at 0, but we're adding the value of the student number, which normally it's a string, not an integer. But anyway, we're adding value to total, and then we're incrementing counter by 1, and then we're adding the next value. And then we go through and then we add the next value to total, and so on, all 6 times. And then of course, your mean is just the total values divided by the number of values. So here we go. We've got your total, counter is your number of values, average is the 2 divided. But there are built-in functions that makes it more, and you'll see this term a lot in computer science. A more elegant solution would be to use built-in functions. So if we hit enter, just to show, this is a good example of how there are multiple ways to solve a problem. And generally speaking, just with experience, you start to kind of see these things jump out at you as being simple, elegant, whatever word you want to use. Generally speaking, the less complex your code is, the more proud you should be. Some folks, my son's in a computer science program, and sometimes he reads way too much into a problem and just gets these hairballs going. And sometimes a second set of eyes can help you simplify things a little bit, make them more elegant. Any questions so far on that? Was a lot. Layla, are you good with classes versus objects and methods versus functions?
Yes, I think so. I've been trying to follow along since I missed the beginning, but I'll go back and watch the beginning of the video when it's posted.
Okay. Yeah, the notion of a class and an object, and I'll say it enough times, and I'll apologize to the folks that have already had this, but I want to make sure everybody that doesn't have coding experience understands the difference between a class and an object, and where to go looking for methods and whatnot. So I'll mention it again. You haven't heard the last of that or me. Okay, so here is a programming exercise all coded up for you. This will ask for, it'll iterate through the days of the week, because we created a list called days of the week, and of course put them in the proper order. And we're going through 7 times. So for I in range 7, we'll create a loop that where I will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Because the range function is 0 based. It starts at 0. It doesn't start at 1. And because lists are 0 based, a list index, the first object in a list is object 0, not object 1. We go through and we'll add a daily sale total for each day of the week, and then print out the total sales. So we could, instead of doing the range 7 here, what could I have put in place of here? Colton.
I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to think about it.
Me too. I was thinking that you could say for I in range days underscore of. Now if I hit tab right here, Leela, just like before where it brings up the methods, if you've fully typed in the variable name and the dot afterward, if you just type in some leading characters and type tab, it tries to guess what days of is. And if there's only one, it'll pop it in for you. So if you've got these nice, long, meaningful variable names and the first few characters are unique, you can just type in the first few characters and hit tab, and it'll fill in that variable for you. So I was thinking for I in range len days of week. Is that not going to be the same thing? Was there not a len function, or is it a method?
It's either len or count.
Count. Let's use that.
Might be count. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
No, counts the number of number of things in the number of times it appears in the list, right? Where's the len? Where's len? Len. Did I not? Yeah, len of the list number. Yep. Last. I thought so. Yeah, I can never remember how these work. So len of days of week, and we need another close paren here. Let's see if that works. 276. That worked. Yeah. So instead of hard coding a list like that, now of course days of the week, yeah. But I just wanted to inject that that normally if you're looping through a list, you want to use the length of the list. in the code, because it could change. You know, you want to try and avoid hard coding stuff if you can. So that's how that worked. Looping through and using an index to change the I. Remember, since we're using the range function, it's not I is not Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that's why we can use it here as an index. Okay, and then lists. This next thing is just a kind of a food for thought. You can have a list of lists where every element in the list is a list. And if you structure it correctly, it can look and operate more or less exactly like a spreadsheet where you're dealing with column and row. But the pandas library that we'll get into next. Well, not next. We're doing SQL next, but we'll start looking at that. That the pandas library makes dealing with rows and columns so much more powerful than anything you would do with a basic Python two-dimensional list. That I'm not even gonna mess with those. Now, as we said, 1008, as we said, tuples are just lists that you can't change the value of. So here we'll force an error here. So that it operates just like that. The only difference is, and it's key, is when you're creating a tuple. Notice there parentheses here, and in when we were working with a list, it was square brackets, and that's the only difference. So Python keys in on that, and it will assign the data type or the class of tuple to films now. So we printed film sub 1, yeah, and let's print type of films class tuple. And of course there are tuple methods, but none of them let you change what's in a given element, because a tuple is immutable. Okay, tuple looping, tuple looping, tuple looping. So there you go. We print out Carrie, Star Trek, and Borg, just like a list. But then if we append Superman to the end and then try and change, I guess that's going to be Star Trek. Let me comment that out real quick here. If we run that, there is no append method. You can't append something to a tuple because it's immutable. Once you create it, it is what it is, and that's that. You can't change the individual values, and you can't add or subtract elements from it. So it's kind of like a static, a constant, almost like a numeric constant we've talked about. So there you go. There is no append method for a tuple. And then if I comment that out and run the other one, I'm pretty sure you get a similar, bam. Tuple object does not support item assignment. You can't change one of the elements in a tuple because it is immutable. So as my buddy Mike, Dr. Ellison from UCA, so what? So why do we need them? There's a couple of reasons. If it's really big, a tuple can work faster. I don't know why. They are safer because once you declare them, and especially if you were to declare it in like an outside library where you couldn't actually get to the code that created it, you wouldn't be able to accidentally change it. So if it's something, no kidding, that doesn't need to change very often, a tuple might be the more elegant way to do that. And yeah, some things don't work on a list that work on a tuple. And then of course we can convert, just like any other data type, we can convert a tuple to a list, do what we got to do, and then turn it back into a tuple if that ever becomes something you need to do. So we convert movies using the tuple function, just like int and str and float convert a string or whatever to those data types. So there we go. Movies is a list. Movies tuple is a tuple. And then this is almost like that stupid penny joke in Sixth Sense. Got it in this hand and I put it in that hand. Now it's back. Okay, so that's lists and tuples. They are really handy when you're dealing with multiple values, kind of like we did in that those programming exercises. So I'm going to do a couple of those when we come back from break. Any questions on any of that? Did anybody get an unexpected error? Any questions?
I did just have one question on
Mm.
the programming exercise with the days of the week. Why did you use was it the len function? Like, what was the purpose of
Up
putting
here?
that in? Mm-hmm.
For something that is super static, like the number of days in a week, hard coding the number 7 isn't a bad thing. But I just wanted to well, for one, I wanted to remember the dynamic way to do a for loop based on the length of the list, no matter what the user did to the list prior in the program, or no matter what, maybe this could be a long program with hundreds of lines of code. Maybe a programmer goofed with it. And if you want it to loop through the list, you should use something dynamic that no matter what happens to the list, it's going to be correct. Does that make sense?
So it keeps it unique. Is that
Well, it keeps it correct. Like
correct? Okay.
if this days of the week list was in a program that was 500 lines long and 300, 10 pages away, I was working with this list. Instead of using the magical number 7, what if we decided that that days of the week we're going to stop tracking Sunday because we're closed on Sunday or whatever? Down in the program now, I got to go find that magic number 7 that referred to the days of the week list, and I got to change it everywhere. But if you make it dynamic, where no matter what happens to days of the week, the loop will operate correctly. To me, that's just it's worthy of consideration. It may not be,
Okay.
it may not matter. And I just wanted to show that instead of saying 7, we could. I just wanted to remind everybody that you can do a for loop based on however long the list is. You don't have to do a hard code in that range function. Well, that was that. Did I cover that okay, Leela? Okay. All right. Well, when we come back from break at 10:30, I want to take a crack at a problem or two in the Python problems too, and then we will break for the day. For this, remember to hit File, Close, and Halt to put away a notebook. Okay, guys. See you back at 10:30. Okay. In the last bit of time we've got left here today, I wanted to pull up the homework and go at it so that you can kind of maybe see how I approach these problems. I haven't tried any of these yet, so it could be a little clumsy. Python problems 2. Did I? Nope, I still have my kernel. Python problems 2. There we go. Okay. So I thought maybe some of these that looped toward the end might be some trouble, right? So and again, if what I'm doing right now just is no help at all, and you had it covered, you feel free to work on your email, whatever you need to do. But I wanted to go through one of these to see just how I decompose the problem into steps that maybe makes it a little bit more manageable. So here we go. We're basically collecting a list of guest ages, and depending on their age bracket, we're totaling up admission and calculating it and printing that out to the screen. So yeah, create a program that begins by reading the ages of all the guests in a group from the user. One age entered on each line. So one age at a time. User will enter a blank. So literally bang equals quote quote is our termination criteria. To indicate that there are no more guests in the group, then your program should display the cost for the group. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a while loop, right? So I'll go ahead and get that working. So let's see, we'll say, what do we call that? Customer age. And we'll ask the user the customer's age. Okay, so we know we're going to want to gather that, right? And we know we'll need a while loop that is while customer age does not equal a blank. Whoop, does not equal double quote. And then we always need the colon at the end of a while loop, or it'll error on us. While customer age does not equal blank, let me see here. I think we're going to need an accumulator. I think I'm missing something there, so just bear with me. And again, like, if watching me stumble through these is counterproductive for you, I encourage you to do something productive. Okay, so while the customer is, we're gonna take the customer's age and we're going to do some if then else logic, right? So if customer age is less than or equal to, we'll do the first bracket, the youngest bracket first. We'll do nothing if they're younger than that. So I don't think we want to mess with that. So let's do the older stuff first. If they're greater than or equal to 65, then we want to say our accumulator variable, party total equals party total plus, what did we say, 18. Okay, so since I'm using party total up here, I'm going to want to just set it equal to 0 just to be sure as we start out. Okay, so I got I'm not sure I'm going to need this input thing here. And I know I'm going to need it inside the loop. I got to ask until they hit 0 or until they hit quote. So if they're greater than or equal to 65, then we're going to add $18. Okay. If, and we'll go down an age group. If there, so that catches everybody over 65, and then it will not check any of the other elifs and elses. Elif customer age is greater than or equal to all other guesses 23. So if they're greater than or equal to 13, forgot the colon, and it when you hit enter after the colon, it automatically indents for you. It knows, so it kind of auto formats for you. So we're going to say party total equals, and we could say party total plus equals 23, but I just old school. I don't know, old habit. Plus, and we said it was $23. Okay, so that catches everybody 13 and then up to 64. And then we've got another bracket, elif customer age is greater than or equal to 3. That catches, this is going to catch the 3-year-olds between 3 and 12, colon. They get a break, right? 20. Party total plus, what is it? 14. Okay. And our else means they're under 3 are admitted without charge. If elif Trying to think if we need an else. I don't. It seems like I've always done it, but I don't know that you need an else after an elif. So we'll keep going. See what we get here. Suspense is just killing. Like I said, I haven't tried this before, so we'll see how it goes. So outside of the while loop now, they've entered a blank. Well, inside the while loop, I guess we better do this input again. So I'm going to cut and paste that. Inside the while loop, outside the if, elif, elif. Okay. And then once they enter it, it will go and check it again at the while. And if they entered a blank, it'll bomb out to the next line here. This is more code than I usually like to write in one go. I don't normally like to write an entire solution like this without checking, because you make an error, and the more you've written since the last time you ran it and checked your logic, the easier it is to get tangled up. So let me see here. Let's just print. Your party total is. We don't need a blank if we use a comma. Is party total. Okay. So I've asked for the age. If they if they just hit enter the first time, it will never enter the while loop. Okay, that looks like that works. And then we start adding the appropriate attendance fee, and I've structured the if elif so that it doesn't check. It checks the oldest first, and if they're not in that bracket, it assumes it'll catch them in the next bracket, and so on. I think that got it. So nobody help me. I'm gonna run it and see what happens. Hey, it didn't bomb. It didn't. That's always a good sign. Enter customer age. Let's go a couple of 30-year-olds. 30. Bam. Tight mismatch. Of course, the input is a string. Duh. So I got an error. Greater than or equal is not supported between instances of string and integer, which you can tell this green numeric literal is an integer. It's nice. Python Jupyter Notebook highlights that for you in a different color. But what we got to do, since we're dealing all with integers, is we need to int our input so that customer age becomes an integer variable. And since we have 3 open parens, we got to have 3 closed parens, or we'll get an error there. Same down here. Of that on the end. Int, not in. Okay. So curious if now our customer age test might be goofy. We'll see. We'll see. Customer age. We'll do 2 30-year-olds. And now I just hit enter. Bam. Yep. Got a type problem again. When we get to invalid literal for int with base 10, quote, quote. Yeah. We might need to use. So if I don't int it, let me think through this now. If I don't convert it to integer, until I'm inside the, I think I'd rather use a different sentinel value. That's what this blank is, a sentinel value, which terminates our loop. So I'm going to make it a negative. I'm going to change the assignment. This is where if you guys are running into problems like this and you don't know where to go, I'm not getting any questions. So I think I'm going to change this to while it's greater than 0. And I'm going to use a negative number as my sentinel instead of just hitting return. See what I get with that. 30 and 30. And now -1. $46. That sound right? They're older than 13, younger than, so we got 2 tickets at $23. Okay, so that the if elif logic is working. Let's run it again. And do some stuff outside. So we got a 75-year-old, so that's $18. And we got a 2-year-old, which should be free. And now I'm -1. So $18. There you go. So that logic all seems to be working okay. But the enter, now I'm trying to think of what I would do to fully satisfy the problem here. Int always returns a string, but I'm trying to get it back to that elegant. If it doesn't equal, I'm trying to think of how. Here we go. If I string convert just temporarily, string convert customer age. So now I'm checking the string input. Even though I inted it when I put it in, I'm converting it, or I'm just for this while loop, I'm checking the string value to see if it's equal to a quote. Let me see if that worked. Let's do the 2 30-year-olds again. 30, and then just enter. Bam. No, didn't like that. Invalid literal for int. Oh, I'm inting the space. Well, I would expect this to give you guys some problems. Because I mean, it's doable. It's just kind of convoluted, where you would only int. You'd have to put some if then else logic around the input and only int it if it's not them hitting enter, which we can do. I'm gonna do that. All right. So we don't want to int it by default. We want to put a little bit of logic around that. So we need to get rid of some parentheses. So we're asking for customer age. So now I'm going to say if, and it comes back as a string. there's a method that is like is num. Let me go look that up. That will check to see if a string is a number. Is numeric. That might be. And it's a string method if I'm, there we go. Python string is numeric method. And it basically comes back with a true or false. This is W3 Schools, by the way, the website I'm on. Fantastic tutorial. And if we run this, 565543 should be true. Yes, we get true in the output window on the right there. So back to our code, I will say if customer age dot is numeric, I think you got to have that is true. Oh, need the colon. Then I want to customer age equals int of customer age. We can move party total up here. Okay, so enter customer age. If it is numeric, actually, I don't need the is true. That's redundant. If customer age is numeric, then we'll int it. And I'm going to need the same logic inside of the while loop, or it'll bomb the first time that's satisfied. So we'll add that logic there. And we'll only int it. We'll only int it if it is an integer. And this may or may not be the best way to go about this, guys. I'm doing one in front of you to kind of hopefully show you that it doesn't just like come flying off my fingertips anyway. But I don't work with Python absolutely every day. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's do our two 30-year-olds. 30, 30, and then a blank. Enter. Ha-ha! So it worked. So there you go. So there you go. Any questions or comments? That was number 5 from the homework. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still getting an error, but I'm trying to read and see what I did differently, what I did wrong.
You want to share your screen or just work on it?
Yeah, I can.
Let me
It says
I gotta enable that. Hang on just a sec.
okay.
Where'd it go? Advanced sharing options. Who can share? Everyone can share. You should have a green arrow now with the share. Let me, I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this was the one that I think had left it unfinished. See, are you seeing it now?
I am.
Okay. I added this here.
Mm.
Let me see. But yeah, after I hit enter on with a blank, then I get, I guess this for 23.
Int
See merit.
object has no attribute. Oh, yeah, get rid of, you don't want to int it. See where your cursor's blinking? Go up one line and get rid of the int of that.
Okay.
And you got an extra, yep. Try that.
There we go.
There you go.
All right. Thank
There
you.
you go. Sure. And the did I have the string still? Yeah, I had let me put my screen back on. I don't think this is necessary. Share that tab. Because we did the logic to only int convert customer age. I don't think I need this string convert down here. I don't think I need this anymore, right? Let's see. 30 and 30 and blank. Bam. Try it again. 2 and 903 and 12. Enter. $46. That sounds right. All right. Yeah, I didn't need the string conversion thing anymore, because we did the logic to only convert the input value if all numeric characters were put in, which we found out the null is not a numeric character. So that's a pretty good programming exercise. That's not super easy beginner first homework assignment. So if this is challenging you guys, it's, I think, for a good reason. But there's nothing like cracking your head against something. And if you're no one has asked me for any help, yet only a couple of people have turned this in. So I'll put the pitch out there again. I'm available. If you're having trouble, you can cut and paste your code into an email and just email it to me. If you don't necessarily want to get together in real time. And I can take a look at it. I can paste it into a Jupyter notebook and tell what's going on. So let me know if you're having trouble. But yeah, if you would please use the rest of the day to finish out this homework. And Colton, remind me, where are we at with it was user credentials, username and password. It sounded like let me stop sharing. Justin asked me if there was any other problems. So I'll get it sorted out. Are you working tomorrow
Yeah, I am.
and the rest of the day? Okay, Colton, I'm going to use you as a guinea pig. I may email you and ask you to check it. If you, I appreciate it if you've got time to maybe check it another time or two, because I really would like to be ready for SQL on Tuesday morning. So I'd like to get this ironed out.
All right, sounds good.
I appreciate your help. Okay, guys, that's all I have for today. Got a big important meeting coming up. Please use the rest of the time for lab time, finish up that Python, and I will see everybody on Tuesday the 30th at 8:30. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. Signing
Thank
out.
you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Signing out from the data patch.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all. Have a good week.
Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great week.